Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Don't You Know I've Had a Stroke with me, Mike Peters, your host for the day. And I've got a very special guest today, and so excuse the half-naked man at the beginning, but I decided to put that video clip on because it's part of my journey forward, and that's when I walked in water, not on water, because that's just for Jesus, but I walked in the water the first time. So without further ado, if you are watching, please say hello and tell us where you're from. Right, I'm going to welcome William Lowe. Hi, William.
Hey, Mike, how are you going?
Can I just say you're from Sydney, Australia, and it's 3 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, that's right. 3 o'clock in the morning on the dot. Coming to you on a Saturday morning here.
So we're Friday afternoon here. So thank you for getting up. You look very well on it.
Sorry?
You look very well.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, I mean, I might look like it, but I mean, I'm actually a little bit tired, but that's okay. I'm pretty sure I can
you see the comments?
stay awake for the show.
Can you see the comments on screen?
Oh, yep. I
So
can see that.
says hello from Westchester, California. Oh, she moves around so much. It's got a timeshare in every city, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Bethel Walker says, "Good morning, William." She's
All
my
right. Good morning to everyone in the States watching this.
Yeah, he's your old friend, Jerry Wald. Now, I first saw you interviewed by Jerry, and that's where I got my inspiration from to do some of because your story fascinated me. But without further ado, who was William Lowe before the stroke, please?
Oh, before my stroke, I was your typical fit, active teenager who didn't have any who on the outside you thought that he had everything handled, and I was that kid who went to high school who was good at everything for no reason, and no one would have expected that I was someone who would have had a stroke. So I actually had my stroke at a very young age. I had my stroke when I was 17 years old, and it was about a week before my university entrance exams. And yeah, that's basically when it happened. I'm happy to share the story around how the stroke happened, if you would like.
Please.
That's basically how it happened. But okay, so the story of how my stroke happened was that I woke up one morning and I really wanted to feel prepared going into my university entrance exams. I was someone who was getting very high marks when I was in high school, but I didn't know why I was getting those high marks, and it sort of got to my head, and I thought that I was actually bulletproof or invincible. And so I didn't actually spend that much time studying. There was a break in between there was a break in between the end of our actual school education and the entrance exams, and I just spent all that time partying rather than studying. And so the week before the exams, that's when I started to panic, and I wanted to really get this handled. So I woke up in the morning, and I began to study for about 3 or 4 hours. And after I studied for quite a bit, I decided to take a break, and that's when I decided to go do some pull-ups on the chin-up bar. So this is one of those things that you put on the door where you kind of bring yourself up and you bring yourself down. And
Yeah,
as
I
I
use it all the time.
yeah, all right. And as I was doing the chin ups, as I came down, I got this massive headache, and that's pretty much when the stroke happened. And also a big surge of pins and needles down my entire left side. But obviously back then I didn't know what a stroke was. The only stroke I'd heard of was a heat stroke. And so I just thought it was just a normal headache, which I could just sleep off. And eventually I would be able to wake up and I would be able to go back to studying like normal. And so I remember I walked out to the living room and I decided to sleep it off there. But when I woke up, that was when I realized that something was wrong and my entire left side couldn't move. Keep in mind that at this time, for some reason, my body had slid down from the sofa to the floor. So I was actually on the floor. And that was when I realized that my entire left side was paralyzed. I was still conscious. But so I tried my best to get up off the floor using only my right side. But eventually over time I realized that it was impossible. And so I just waited on the floor until my mum came home, and that was around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's when I actually got sent to hospital and I received treatment. But it was actually too late, so I didn't get a lot of the conventional treatment which they provide now. I believe that they provide the blood clot busting treatment, which is basically where you have to get to hospital within the first 3 hours, at least that's in Australia, to actually be eligible for them to go into your brain and actually remove the clot and do all that do all that medical stuff. So I didn't get that, unfortunately. So the only thing they did was they just stabilized me, and then I began my rehab from there, and I had to really put together the puzzle pieces of I guess my life, and try and figure out how I was going to come back from being someone who had everything to now having the capabilities of I guess a 4-year-old overnight.
I was very similar. I fell on the floor. I wasn't doing pull-ups though. I hadn't done anything, but I called for my boys and they didn't come. But the dog came, but she couldn't help me get up. I couldn't move. So, so before your stroke, you were studying as an occupational therapist.
Oh no. So the part about going to university and studying to become an occupational therapist, that actually came after. I had my stroke in high school, um, and and after I had my stroke, my previous ambitions were to become a uh, a civil engineer. But then after I had my stroke, I realized that maybe it wasn't for me. So I took a year off to sort of get my recovery going, teach myself how to walk again, and I went back to university and I studied civil engineering, and I tried to capture the past. But then I realized that I wasn't really passionate about it, so I switched over to occupational therapy because I wanted to help other stroke survivors in their their recovery. Given everything I'd learned in that year I'd taken off. And then while I was starting to become an occupational therapist, I was also helping other stroke survivors along the side. And throughout my time at OT school, I gradually realized that some of the things which they were teaching me at the university, it didn't really align with my own experience as a stroke survivor, in that I had my own thoughts of how I would treat a stroke survivor, whereas the university had their own thoughts, and it was really hard to find I guess a balance between satisfying, I guess, what the textbook tells you to do versus what your own experience tells you to do on your own conscience.
So, do you think doctors and that don't really understand stroke?
Well, I think stroke is a pretty holistic. It's a pretty holistic thing in that it affects everyone differently. Obviously, different people are going to cope with stroke recovery after stroke a lot different. For example, some people when they realize that after a stroke that they can't do some things like before, it might take them some time. It might take them some time to process all this information and get to a point in their recovery where they feel satisfied. And I think sometimes the thing with therapists is that it can be a little bit clinical. For example, when I was in university, we would have case studies where they would give us a assignment and they would ask us to treat a imaginary patient who has had a stroke and they can't walk, and rather than working on the walking to help them get somewhere, which I know would be the most rewarding thing, what they would encourage us to do is they would encourage us to jump straight to giving the person a wheelchair rather than actually working on the thing which is going to benefit them in the long term. Which, I mean, I understand this can change as occupational therapists begin to work and they begin to have interactions with their client or their patients on what they want most. And some people might want the wheelchair. So that might actually work well if the occupational therapist is inclined to go in that direction where they want to, I guess, compensate rather than work hard on something which is going to reward the client
Right.
in the long term.
And can I ask about, I really suffered with my mental health in hospital because the doctor said, why do you want anything? A stroke does not affect your mental health. And I was actually suicidal. Did you have any health issues?
I think for the first month or so, it really affected me mentally. Because I was the kid who, I mean, like I said, I was the kid who was good at everything in high school. Pretty much, I felt privileged, and it got to my head, and to lose all of that overnight, and now have to start over again. Yeah, I mean, I went through periods of time in hospital where I felt like if I where I was contemplating suicide, but obviously I didn't have a gun or anything, so I wasn't going to do it. Yeah, but there were thoughts that I wouldn't be able to come back from this like you would when you broke your arm or when you just had like the typical injury other than a stroke.
So Serena says wheelchair is easier for everyone except the person in it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, wheelchair is easier. Yeah, that's right. And I think the thing that they were encouraging us to do in occupational therapy school, and I'm not saying that this reflects all occupational therapists. I respect the profession. But I just think that some of the things that they were teaching me in university, they didn't like to deviate from certain ways of doing things. They were very stuck in their ways, as in this is how it's always been done. That
But
sort of.
you've rewritten the book because you've had a stroke and you know how it should be done now.
Yeah, of course. Which is why when I got to my final year in occupational therapy school, that was when I stopped. Because that was when I stopped, because I realized that I couldn't come to terms and find this middle ground. And now I currently teach and I coach stroke survivors who are at a standstill on how to modify their exercises in their recovery so that they can recover with more ease and certainty.
And what do you think of the word plateaued?
Well, I don't think there's ever a plateau in recovery after stroke. I think that I think that a plateau only occurs because of two reasons, and this is something which I've shared quite a lot in my stroke stroke recovery group on Facebook. And the first reason is because you've you've gotten to a point in your recovery where you're, let's say, 100% recovered, and there's not a lot more you can squeeze out of your recovery in terms of, I guess, tangible gain. So everything looks pretty much exactly the same as before. So 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 yeah. So you can't see any improvements at that stage. So that's what we would consider plateau. So if you were to take someone who hasn't had a stroke before at all, and they were just going through the daily motions, this is someone who's, I guess, plateaued in their ability to do something, unless you're a superhero and you can, I don't know, you can turn on the tap quicker than the average person by like maybe a microsecond.
I can
So
remember
that's
one of your old videos and talking about plateau. People said I never do this, and now I can pick up a ball with my hand and then drop it.
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I'm so glad to hear. Yeah, I mean, there
And
you
that's
go. I
because
mean,
of you.
that's yeah, that's just one example of the whole idea of the plateau. And I'll talk a little bit more around, you know, the whole the the reasoning behind why you can drop the ball now versus before. But yeah, so that's the first reason. The first reason is that you're at a point in your recovery where you're completely satisfied with how you're going. You're 100% recovered. There's not a lot more you can squeeze out of your brain in terms of your recovery. And that being said, the second reason is the main culprit behind why people experience stages in their recovery where they feel like they're not seeing as many improvements as fast as they would like them to be, or they're feeling like they're in a plateau. And the second reason why these these instances in your recovery happen is because the exercises which you're currently doing haven't been modified with respect to your recovery after stroke. So a typical scenario which I typically see is that stroke survivors get discharged from the hospital, and 6 or 7 months later they're basically doing the exact same exercises which they've been doing since they were in hospital. And so what's happened is, for the first month doing those exercises, their recovery curve has probably gone up like this, but then their brain has gone to a point where it's felt like it's mastered everything there is to learn from an exercise. And then because it's just doing the exact same thing and there's been no change to that exercise, it's just kind of going like this. And until there's a change in the way that they do the exercise, then they're going to see that their recovery curve kind of goes like that again. And then it kind of goes like that. Every time there's change, it goes like that. And the brain reaches mastery, or what it feels like mastery, and then it goes like that. And it goes like that. So I know the camera's acting a little bit funny, but it's kind of like that. And so I'm going back to your ability to drop the ball. The reason why that is because for a certain period of time, your ability to pick up the ball and drop it or release it was kind of like this. But then now that you're giving your brain the experience of what it feels like to release the ball, that means that your brain's kind of put together the pieces, and it's been exposed to the experience of what it feels like to drop the ball. And so your ability to do that task has kind of gone up like this. And as you continue to do it and modify the way you do it, then we can expect to see that it will follow a similar graph as the one I described just then.
So now it's your business now. So what can you do for people out there?
Well, I mean, well, what I do is I work privately with one-on-one paying clients to help them in their recovery after stroke, whether this be returning to walking or 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 I guess getting the most out of their hands. So, for example, if you're someone who if if you're someone who is using electrical stimulation to try and get back more of your hand, this is something I actually specialize in, because it's just something I've just spent a lot of time doing, and I've gone to the stage where I design custom placements for my clients. But yeah, I started doing this whole coaching thing because I know when I first had my stroke, there wasn't a lot of information related to stroke. There was virtually no information. In fact, the only piece of information I got told was, "Don't worry, you're young." But throughout all this time in my journey of just really thinking about this and really researching into recovery after stroke, especially during my time at OT school, reading through thousands of research papers, applying these to myself at my own risk, and observing what happened, what I've found is that I discovered that there was a certain system or a framework behind how to modify exercises in a certain way so that you can keep pushing the envelope in your recovery. So for anyone who's ever asked themselves that question, that maybe they thought they could have been a little bit further in their recovery after stroke, or if they've been wondering how to get that extra amount of recovery, this is where I come in, and I really help figure out ways to modify whatever you're currently doing to get that extra percentage in your recovery.
So Paul Cummings says hello, and his show today was about aphasia and how people didn't know what it was. Did you know what aphasia was? I need some brownie points.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, aphasia. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I know what aphasia is. I personally never lost my voice, thankfully. But yeah. Going back to what I said before. I personally wouldn't be able to help someone with aphasia, but from what I do know, I know that there are certain things you can do to get your speech going after stroke. For example, one of the things I've heard which works really well is reading out books like aloud, reading out pages aloud, and also using flashcards and
Yeah, that's what Paul
playing that board game.
holding up flashcards
Yeah.
and going, because
Yeah.
he can only say one for ages and ages, and then he turned into one sock.
Yeah.
So he said one sock. So his vocabulary doubled in a matter of minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And another thing, just to add on to that, if you're feeling really ambitious and you want to be hard on yourself, you can play board games like charades, where you actually force the person with the aphasia to actually describe the word, using their words only. Obviously, they can't move, but they're just forced to work on their voice in that regard.
So Salou, who's a caregiver for Tom, says she had next step LA 3 hours per week, and at times he had up to 4 therapists working on him. Should have come to you, shouldn't they?
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, it's real. I guess it's really hard because I'm an online coach, right? Because I'm based in Australia, obviously, I'm not in the States. There's only so much I can do online. But the good thing about online is that I have to be 100% accurate with what I'm suggesting. And some of the stuff, well, most of the stuff which I suggest, it's based on things which have been proven to get results in recovery, which is why I'm able to get the results for my clients, which I do.
So I've got a question here, which somebody in my stroke group asked: are you expensive? Are you out of our league? Because everybody, if any recovery or treatment is also expensive. And I know you've got to earn a living, but you don't mind me asking, do you?
Well, I think the cost is well, well, I mean, the price of anything is dependent on how important it is to the person to to the person who I'm working with. So, um, I'm not sure how to answer that question because expensive is a very is a term which is very open to interpretation to
Sure,
everyone. It's
I
a
understand.
very, expensive to you might not mean that much to me. But I guess, I guess what I guess when clients work with me, basically what they're doing is they're working to speed up their recovery after stroke. I'm here as a coach. I'm here to speed up things so that it doesn't take years, but rather you you can achieve things which took me years to do in maybe a few weeks or a few months.
So, William, if people want you, how do they do it, please? And do they have a consultation first, and then you can discuss terms and conditions?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so usually okay, so I provide a so I always provide a free trial consultation or session. First up because I like to know what's actually going on with someone and if I can actually help them. I don't feel very happy about charging someone up front. Um, so I always do an initial consultation. And and right now I'm really active on Facebook. I'm active on my site, but not as much. But if you would, but if you would, but if you're watching this and you would like to get in contact with me and you would like a really prompt response, one thing you can do is perhaps Mike, you can type down my name in the comments and they can contact me directly over Facebook, or or if not Facebook, you can go to my site below, William Lowe Stroke Coach, and there should be an option to schedule a session with me over Zoom, just virtually, and it works with your time zone. I'm based in Sydney, but the scheduling software I use it can be adjusted to wherever you are in the world. So if you're in the UK, you can actually change the times to the UK so that you get times in your time zone when I'm available. But probably not at this time because it's 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, that's great. Right, we're coming to the end now. Can I just thank you very, very much? I love all these stroke survivors who are giving something back, and you definitely are. And when I can pick up the ball without using my teaching hand, um, because Salute taught me you have a teaching hand and you have a learning hand. So your teaching hand helps your learning hand.
Yeah. I suppose so. Yeah, that's right. I think as stroke survivors, we have to find innovative ways to to I guess use what we have left after stroke and use that to get back our affected side. And in most cases, in recovery after stroke, with a lot of the studies which have been done, a lot of the recovery does some of the recovery does happen from the good side of your brain, rewiring the damaged part of your brain how to do some things after stroke. I'm not saying that that's what's happened in your case, but it's just an example of what your brain is capable of.
One last question, William. What
Yeah.
do you think caused your stroke? Was it the stress of your exams and things?
It's okay. So I actually prefer not to know, because because it stops me from ever getting into a place where I feel like I'm made of titanium.
Yeah,
Because I'm someone who's not naturally humble, and and I and 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 I think back then it got to a point where I was starting to believe the stuff I was telling myself in the mirror. But the actual cause of my stroke, when I was in hospital, they said that they couldn't find the cause. They thought it was a defect in the artery, and from what I've been told by my neurologist is that my stroke comes under a special category of strokes, which are called cryptogenic strokes, where they can't find the cause, and this might be because of drug use, or it might be because of I guess it's for labeling those strokes which they just can't find a cause for some reason. Usually you would have the blood clot or the bleed in the brain. My one was a blood clot, by the way, but the actual cause behind that blood clot, they couldn't find that. So all my arteries were cleared. I didn't have any of the typical risks which someone who has had a stroke would have. I was just a typical active, fun teenager.
So Salu says, be determined, never give up. And another favourite of hers is positive mental attitude, which I think you have an abundance of. So once again, I want to thank you and go and get some beauty sleep, even though you don't need it.
Yeah, no problem, Mike. It was great to
So
see you.
thank you, William. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.
So thank you everybody for watching. He's a great man. So please check out his website. Definitely worth it. He saw what I did with the wall. So thank you very much, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now. Bye.